So, Brandon, back on October 1st, you, me, Sam, and Ben all got together and we made a little video. That video being James Harden trade to the Philadelphia 76ers. Now, we made this video prior to the Doc Rivers signing. I'm sorry, formerly known as Doc Rivers, Glenn Rivers signing um, as the next head coach for the Philadelphia 76ers. In that video, we said a few things that we want to build on with recent news that just came out. So back then, we were going off of just some theories, some hunches that could have been going our way. We were focused on the Mike D'Antoni potentially being the head coach, but when we saw D'Antoni didn't get the head coaching job and Glenn Rivers got it, we thought the hopes and dreams for this was all lost. But in reality, Mike D'Antoni didn't really need to be the catalyst of this trade. You know why, Brandon?
Because
Because
they got
Daryl
Daryl Morey.
Morey.
Yeah.
Yes,
They're paying
Daryl
him $10 million a
Morey.
year too.
Yes, he is the new GM for the Philadelphia 76ers, formerly for the Houston Rockets. He was the man who pulled the trigger on the James Harden trade, the Chris Paul
From
trade,
OKC. Yeah.
the Russell Westbrook trade. Now these three trades, Daryl Morey. Let's give you guys some backstory on Daryl Morey for a minute. He's really active on the trade market. He's one of those GMs that isn't afraid to wheel and deal some star players to potentially get the best outcome for the team. So some trades that he has done in the past include James Harden from the Thunder in 2012, where he traded Kevin Martin, Jeremy Lamb, 2 first-round picks, and a second rounder for James Harden. What a steal, man. James Harden, we're going to get into a little bit after I let Brandon take over, but when Daryl Morey left the Houston Rockets, he sent a message. He posted an article on a newspaper, and he really posted some emotional stuff about James Harden. So that could also lead to potentially the 76ers wanting him even more. Another trade was Chris Paul from the Clippers in 2017, where uh, the Clippers received Patrick Beverley, Montrezl Harrell, Lou Williams, a first-round pick, and cash considerations. They also received 4 lesser-known players, Sam Decker, Darren Hillard, DeAndre Liggins, and Kyle Whittinger. And then, of course, the Russell Westbrook trade from the Thunder, which was uh, we all thought it was something blockbuster, but it never really panned out. And I feel like this might be a reason why the Houston Rockets move on from James Harden. But Brandon, what are your thoughts on this news, and how did we get the news?
Well, it first started to come around probably on some beat websites like, Harden to Philadelphia. Where that's where we kind of first picked up the story and when we first talked about it and when we first like kind of reported it ourselves saying, and kind of talked about the implications of the trade and what the trade could look like. That's how it kind of started. Where it's at now, and like you said, to be fair, like when we said D'Antoni was going to be the next head coach for the Sixers because that's what Elton Brand said. Doc Rivers was just or Glenn Rivers now was just fresh off the market too, fresh on the market after being fired by the Clippers. So with that being said, I think Doc Rivers is the better head coach,
Mm.
and Daryl Morey wasn't let go or didn't let go or resign. I'm not sure what happened.
He stepped down. He stepped down.
Okay, so resign. So
But
he
they bought him out. So he signed a 5-year extension. After 1 year, they bought
okay.
out the contract. I think it was a mutual agreement,
All
which
right.
allowed him to become a GM of any
All right.
other franchise.
Right. So either way, he left,
Hmm.
and now we're kind of seeing the implications of him being let go because now with the beat previously and back in October when we spoke about it, we were saying that it has to be D'Antoni that drives the force for Harden to the move for Harden. Now it seems like because they have Daryl Morey, things are going to change. And like I said, last time we spoke about this, like I think the most reasonable and probably most likely trade that will come out of this is not trading Embiid, but trading Ben Simmons,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
specifically Ben Simmons and Josh Richardson. Probably a few picks in there as well,
Yeah.
because
How
Daryl
does that
Morey,
align? How does that align with the salary, Brandon?
they almost match up. They probably have to throw in some cap filler, like a trade exception, or maybe if they have like a salary
Yeah,
that's worth like
because
2 or 3 million.
they have a $1.8 million trade exception that they received when they traded James Ennis to
Right,
Orlando. So if we add up the salaries, Ben Simmons around 29 million, Josh Richardson around 10.8 million. That makes them just shy 1.5 almost million short. But with that 1.8 million trade exception, they are allowed to absorb uh extra money that comes in from that trade due to that James Ennis trade to Orlando.
right. So, and I'm sure because like we saw with the Chris Paul and the Westbrook trade, and I don't think I think the Harden trade there was a few picks involved as
Hmm.
well.
Yeah, it
Specifically,
was two first round picks and a
right,
second
because
rounder.
one of them came out to be Steven Adams. That's right.
Hmm.
For me, and Morey, so Morey has been one to deal assets and deal first round picks. So we're gonna probably see a multi-pick, a multiplayer trade to get James Harden. Whether a third team wants to get involved on it, that's left to be seen. But what could happen and the implications of this trade is now um, kind of how it was when LeBron went to Miami. Veterans want to start playing because they want to win championships, and this could be
Hmm.
like the best Sixers squad we've seen.
Yeah, I almost feel like they're like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers of the NBA if they make this trade move later. They're assembling the Avengers. They're gathering all these pieces that just probably on paper by themselves just seem like incredible. They're probably one of the favorites in the East, not if not the favorite if they just make this move. But as one of our buddies, Sam, likes to mention, a 1-2 punch really can't do it in the playoffs. It can do it in the regular season. We saw this past season with the Milwaukee Bucks being the best team in the NBA, and then in the playoffs hitting a roadblock in the Miami Heat. But 1-2 punches aren't that successful. So teams
I
like
mean,
the
for the past 2 years, I mean, prior, yes, like prior to like last two seasons, because you can make the argument that Toronto, it was Kawhi, neither Pascal or Kyle Lowry.
yeah, but that's a
And
big three.
okay, but this year it was LeBron and AD. Who was the third star? Like Rondo?
Okay, that's a fair point you pose. I'm just bringing up a point that Sam would like us to touch upon. You make a great argument as to why a duo can work. I believe that they need another player like Spencer Dinwiddie, who's a free agent. He's not the biggest of names, but if he goes to the 76ers and they succeed, he will be a big name around the NBA. You know what I mean?
Right.
This could be the first domino to fall to start a true contender in the East.
No, yeah,
Um,
that does make sense. And
mhm.
you talk about like other guys that are willing to take money, to take away money to further their career and to get more accolades. Another big star that we talked about Miami possibly getting was Victor Oladipo. He's come out and said like, listen, like I will take less money if that means winning a chip.
Yeah, so that's interesting you say because it would be an interesting combination. But let's get into who they're gonna acquire potentially later.
Right.
Later, you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
So let's talk about the Harden fiasco going on right now. So I alluded earlier that the former GM of the Houston Rockets, Daryl Morey, when he left Houston, he wrote an ad in a local newspaper. In the ad, just gonna quote a few things that really catch my eye and it need to be heard. So an entire page could be dedicated to just James. He not only transformed my life, but also revolutionized the game of basketball and continues to do so, like almost no one has before. The game is played differently because of James, and on every playground in the world, the next generation of talent is studying and imitating his game. Another quote. I can't believe I won't be able to have another strategy session with James, Morey wrote. Or will he? I loved working together on how to get his incredible Hall of Fame teammates, Dwight Howard, Chris Paul, and Russell Westbrook, to the Rockets. I will be rooting for James to win a championship in Houston. It's how his story should end. Another quote. James Harden changed my life. Daryl Morey. Daryl
I mean,
Morey has the
yeah.
utmost respect for James Harden.
James brought him a lot of success. Like even when he was paired, Dwight Howard that first year, Dwight Howard kind of carried that the kind of carried that Houston team.
Yeah, when
But
they lost to the Damian Lillard
yeah,
game winner in the playoffs.
yeah. So there was that, but um, James Harden brought Houston a lot of success, and a lot of the success also had to do with Daryl Morey being able to surround James Harden with talent like Chris Paul, Dwight Howard, Westbrook, guys, and also good veteran pieces like Eric Gordon and PJ Tucker. Like
Yeah.
he's done a great job, and I don't doubt that like he's not going to do somewhat similar in Houston
Yeah,
and
hold
in
on.
Philly. My bad.
Yeah, exactly. This is what I was trying to get at with these quotes, Brandon, and I want your opinion on this.
Okay.
What if Daryl Morey could see these dreams of James Harden's championship come true in Philadelphia? What I mean by this is Daryl Morey has the utmost respect for James Harden. It is clear as day with these quotes that I just posted. If Daryl Morey has the opportunity to get a player like James Harden on his team, there is no way he does not do it. He's going to push, claw, nail his way to the Rockets agreeing to this somehow, getting a third team like Atlanta or the Knicks. Um, I just don't see this as a like something that's really, oh, that's not possible, that's far-fetched. No, this is the James Harden to Philadelphia 76ers train. We were on it first, October 1st. It is something that should be known. Everybody should know it. I mean, this could benefit both teams really. And let's take a look at how the 76ers could look, Brandon, because
Right.
we're both in agreement that this trade could really go down, right?
Yeah, no, for sure. I think even Harden might want this trade to go down, to play in Philadelphia, to play with Embiid, to play with a coach like Glenn Rivers. I think it
Yeah,
excites him.
his good buddy Meek Mill is also from Philadelphia native,
Yeah.
so that could also play a little factor into that too. The thing is, are the Rockets willing to end things with Russell Westbrook and James Harden? We saw they weren't that successful this year, but what are your thoughts about the the Rockets' perspective?
For the Rockets' perspective, I mean, I think they just hired a new head coach too. So it's going to be, and I think they do need to hire a new GM.
Hmm.
I would probably suspect that they would probably do that before the draft. But if they don't, this could honestly signal the fact that Morey could still push a trade for Harden and give up some valuable assets to get so. I
Yep.
mean, I think like I think after the Paul George trade from Clippers to Thunder, from Thunder to the Clippers, I don't think any trade is unrealistic at this point. Like I think you could
Yeah.
be anyone could be moved without that besides when they have a no trade clause in their contract. Um So for me, I think what could really go down is someone of Ben Simmons and Josh Richardson going, and then Houston looking at maybe potentially shipping Westbrook as well. And you
Yeah,
know,
we'll get into that a
yeah,
little later in this episode. I promise. But
yeah,
let's get back to the Philadelphia 76ers side for a minute. Doc Rivers being the new head coach. Glenn Rivers. I'm sorry. It's just not
yeah,
clicking so
it's
far.
gonna be so hard.
Yeah. How's that style of play gonna be with Joel Embiid, Tobias Harris at the four, James Harden at the one, maybe a few cool role players like Spencer Dinwiddie or other guys that are free agents. What are your thoughts on how that team could really perform?
So I think their game plan, because what makes Harden so great is that he's a versatile player. He's such a like with when he was coached by Kevin McHale it wasn't very transition heavy. It was very play in the half court. And then when he switched over to, it started progressing more towards D'Antoni's fast paced 7 seconds or less offense, he really hitting him on the break. Yes, there was some ISO ball when it was with him and Chris Paul, but I think we really saw when he got Westbrook and they got rid of Clint Capella, moved PJ Tucker to the 5. I think that's when we really saw the experiment of 7 seconds or less offense really
Mm-hmm.
take place. And James Harden flourished in both. He can play in the half court and then he can play one transition. Doc Rivers is Doc Rivers will play transition when he needs to. We saw that with Boston, especially when Rondo likes to get out there and run. Especially when they get steal the ball. Um, with the
I have a
Clippers, it
take.
was yeah.
I have a take here, and I want to see what you think about it. It's a little crazy to say, but is it crazy to see a Lob City 2.0, potentially with James Harden, Joel Embiid,
I don't
maybe
know if
maybe
Joel
another
can get up
athletic.
like DeAndre gets up, and
No, but
Blake.
it's a similar style. I mean,
Yeah,
when was the last time uh, James Harden really had a center? Clint Capella. Okay, when was the
right.
has
I mean
James
Dwight
Harden
Howard
ever
too.
had an elite center? He had
Dwight
Dwight
Howard.
Howard, who was
That was
outside of
coming
his
off
prime, really.
like that was coming off like a time where I think it was a pissed off Dwight Howard and that was a Dwight Howard that was yeah, that was a time in the NBA that it was still okay to have a center like him. Like it wasn't too terrible. And so he still put up numbers.
Yeah. The thing is, for me, I look at this potential team: James Harden, Joel Embiid, still have Al Horford. They still have a bunch of guys.
Tobias Harris.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And for me, it just screams Lob City. I don't know. Tobias
Well,
Harris can
I'll
get up
hire
there, not as well as Blake Griffin, obviously, but
yeah.
we're,
Al
we're
Horford
gonna we're
in
gonna
the
see
league.
some version of throw it up there, I'll finish it.
Yeah, no, I think so. And Harden can take you off the dribble and throw the lob, and especially if Joel is camping in the paint, which I suspect maybe he might do in a Doc Rivers type of offense. I think he's still not. I think he's going to transition to his game to more of a face up. So I don't know if he's going to be close to the rim per se, but there will be times where he's going to just be chilling on the block, waiting for Harden to take his defender off the dribble to catch a lob.
Yeah, yeah. I like the whole aspect of this trade scenario just screams that it could potentially happen for me. We were discussing that a potential third team may need to get involved to fix those caps, but hopefully these two teams can piece these players together and try and find a really good package that benefits both teams. I mean, Ben Simmons is a heck of a player. Josh Richardson is a heck of a player. I
Right.
know they're no James Harden, but these are two guys you can potentially build a future around. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is also cool, like a cool experiment for Harden as well, because it's giving him a brand new type of player that he's never played with, which is pretty much a stretch big. He's
Mhm.
never played with a stretch big before. He's played with if it was a center, it was Dwight Howard or Clint Capella, guys that will get you that are chilling in the paint, play basically back to basket type players, or his star player would be Chris Paul or Russell Westbrook, who are guards.
Yep.
This is it's giving Harden a new type of
I mean,
co-star to be next to.
yeah, he gets a top two, top three center in the NBA, no
Yeah,
doubt. And I mean, think of it pairing him with Nikola Jokic. It's kind of the same thing. Like,
yeah,
they're different styles of play, but yeah, it's just gonna be sheer dominance when they're on the floor together. I mean, Joel Embiid isn't the most selfish of players. He also isn't the most giving, but I feel he could be a really, really good asset for James Harden to feed off of. You know how many double teams Joel Embiid draws? I mean, think of
right.
the nightmare matchup that could be the Philadelphia 76ers. Just looking at it from a basketball perspective, that almost seems unguardable. James Harden is the drawing foul machine. Nobody in the NBA draws more fouls than James Harden does when driving into the paint. Now you're adding the factor of he can throw it up no matter what, and then Joel Embiid will dunk it.
Yeah,
That's just adding another element to James Harden's game, which he is the best at doing. He is the craftiest, most creative player the NBA has really ever seen. He is stretching the boundaries of what is allowed, stretching the boundaries of what was thought to be possible. And now you're adding a whole new arsenal, a whole new scenario, a whole new city, whole new team. He can only benefit.
No,
I
yeah,
mean,
he
he's
can.
he's he's not at the peak of his prime.
And I think with the addition of Harden, is going to allow the Sixers to really open up the floor because they were a perimeter centric type team as well. Embiid shot a lot of threes. Richardson's a 3-and-D guy. Tobias Harris was really much on the corner on the wings. The same thing with Horford. And you bring off Korkmaz or Mike Scott. I mean, those guys stretch the floor.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the only person and the only issue with that offense is Ben Simmons. So now you add a guy like James Harden who can essentially be Ben Simmons by taking off the dribble and finishing with either hand at the rim, and now adding a 3-point shot coupled with the ball handling, coupled with the playmaking. I mean, James Harden is the complete guard. I mean, probably besides defense, I think that's where Ben Simmons gets him. But
Yep.
and size. But other than that, like you can pair if you pair a backcourt, like I think Avery Bradley's a free agent this year. If you pair him and Avery Bradley together, like that could be a decent backcourt defensively and also offensively as well.
Yeah. So 76ers really, really have a bright future here. Uh, Even if they don't pull this Harden trade off, but I feel like this is more probable than people give it credit for.
Yeah.
We're calling it here. This is going to be one of the trades done this offseason before we get the next NBA season.